Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
This topic has been on my mind for the past few months, and I've been reading some books about this topic and finding more and more about these new type of technologies, which as an investor, as a long-term investor, makes me a bit nervous because I own businesses for the long term and I don't know if they're going to be there. At the same time, as a user and as a human being, it gets me excited that what all things are possible to happen in the world. Could you guess what she is doing? It's fairly easy, but if you can guess. Sorry? How many things she's taking a selfie? Selfie? Show of hand selfie? So she's a newscaster, she's a TV anchor, and if you remember, if you see any television crew going about, they will have a camera guy, they will have a lights guy, they will have a makeup guy. But what she is using is a selfie stick. Mounted on that is a camera phone, or a normal smartphone with a camera, a good camera. Connected the mic to it. There might be an app where she's recording that video. And because we have such a great connectivity, mobile connectivity now, she can upload that video back to her studio. And they may not even want to upload it on a channel. They'll put it on YouTube maybe. What just happened is that a lot of technologies came together to make this moment possible. But before we go into the idea of exponential technologies, let's discuss the concept of disruption first. So what does disruption look like? So a few years ago, if you had to hail a cab, you would do something like this, and the cab guy would do something like this, and it will make you feel like this. What's the point, But say fast forward to today, who's your daddy now? I mean, I have this, and the car comes right in front of me. So what happened here is that, like in any disruptive technology, when I started using the Uber app for the first time, I thought it was really unbelievable. How can it just summon the cab, in front of me? So I was looking for a number to call. So because of the radio cab days, I thought there's a number, I will call that number, and then they will book me a cab, and then they will not send the cab, and then they will do the evil laugh at my expense. So I used the Uber app, and the car was right in front of me. The driver is saying, "Sir, kahan jana hai?" And I was wondering, wow, this is almost magical. What happened is it just changed the way my world of commuting, the way it works, it just changed it completely, because now I don't have to beg to a cabbie, "Arey bhai, chalo na, I want to go to this place, why don't you just take me there?" Now I can just summon anyone and he's there. It also created a huge economic impact. So it's not just the fact that the drivers have learned or gotten a better source of employment than they were driving the cabs before or any private cars before. They also have understood the importance of good service, which will go a long way for them, even if they are not a driver anymore. But again, like any technology or a disruptive technology, it will never cater to the guys who have their own car and they'll have their own driver waiting for them. So they were never part of the market anyway. But people like me, the common commuter, it's a godsend. So is that it? Is disruption it? Well, no. Let's dig deeper. So this is one of the books I read recently. It's written by a guy called Peter Diamandis with Stephen Kotler. If you remember, they're also the authors of a book called Abundance, which is again another fantastic book. So in bold, these guys discuss something called as the exponential framework. And they have these steps that they think exponential technologies go through. In order to achieve this, all technologies which we have seen, which have gone from early adopters to decline or maturity, they have gone through the same process of exponential growth. And if you can see the lady over there using her tiny mobile phone, would you have believed this possible 10 years ago? I wouldn't have. But this is possible, again, like the lady with the newscasting lady, is because of exponential technologies going through the same framework of exponential networks. Let's dig deeper. So what does digitize mean? So when you digitize something in technical terms, it means that something that was analog you move it to the digital frame. So something that was a manual process becomes ones and zeros. But if you want to talk in plain English, digitization means that there is an existing layer of technology available. You build something on top of that, and somebody else comes and builds something on top of that. So imagine when there was just this technology, which is an analog technology. You used to put your finger and crank the numbers till you get to dial. Now imagine at some point in time, the network of fixed line users was only limited to the guys connected to that network. Internationally, if you see, the number of fixed line users will be still less, much less than the number of mobile phone users. So with a fixed line, if I wanted to call somebody and give a very short message that, hey, see you there, I have to dial all the numbers, and the guy is there to answer my call, or an answering machine at best. But some champ, he came out and said, okay, hey, why not use cellular technology? This is this brick which you can use, and there is this keypad which has very hard keys, but if you press it properly, you can type in a message and send the same message to that guy as an SMS. Now, cellular technology was available at that time, along with this, and some guys did that, and then all it took me was for the other guy to have the same technology with him, and that network was connected between me and him, and he got my SMS without me ever wanting to wait for the call to be responded. So that he has got the message because we use the same technology. So digitizing, now obviously you see the iPhone here, but this took a long time. This is like a 25-year or probably more than that for all the technologies to come together to build something like this. This is what digitization does. You take something which was in a physical world and slowly upgrade it by incremental features to make it digital. The second step that these guys did is deception. And this is a very interesting step according to me. So when any new technology comes up, there will always be the innovators who are the geeks who create a technology and who put it up for people to use. Let's take the same example of a fixed line network versus a mobile phone. So imagine you are an officer, a senior officer in BSNL or MTNL, and somebody comes to you in 1989 and tells you, sir, this is a new technology called cellular technology. Have you heard about it? Yeah, I've read about it somewhere. It came in the news the other day. So what do you think? Should we invest in cellular technology? Wait, 1 second. How much will it cost? Oh, pucho mat sir, it's too much. It's not in our budget, but do you want to start investing in this technology? Well, let's see. How many users are there in this technology right now? Well, sir, hundreds maybe. It doesn't make sense. I'm collecting my rent on this phone from all my existing customers. I'm collecting the really exorbitant call charges. I'm very comfortable in what I'm doing right now. Should I really bother to invest in something which will get me fired someday? Well, put it on the shelf. We'll figure it out later. Now, in the stage of deception, those say 10 users, even if the growth rate is 100%, the 10 becomes 20. Next year, the growth rate is 100% again. It's a phenomenal growth rate by any means, but still the user base is 40. And it will take a long time to suddenly, I think 13 steps till it becomes into millions. So imagine if you are looking at that kind of a growth rate of any adoption, it has to go through this curve. And this graph is from this book by Jeffrey Moore called Crossing the Chasm. And this chasm is basically the point where BSNL, MTNL could have ignored it, but the moment you cross the chasm, it becomes so large that it has already passed you. So if you are one of the early adopters of cellular technology, say you are an Airtel or a Vodafone who started off with, say, a mobile technology directly, they had the innovators advantage and the early adopters advantage. I mean, it is really crazy that somebody would pay 16 rupees for a call to be received. I remember that. My cousin of mine had a phone and he used to pay 16 rupees to receive a call. It sounds criminal now, but he was one of these early adopters. And based on his experience, the technology kept on incrementally updating itself and eventually crossed the chasm. And now we won't even say meh if somebody says I have 2 smartphones. Because it's that common, the technology. So all these technologies that I'm talking about go through these cycles of innovation, early adoption, and something needs to happen here. Some technologies need to come together in order for them to cross the chasm and become, go to the early majority and keep growing. A lot of technologies have a very fast declining rate. Some people keep going for a while and then they decline, which is based on technology again, how soon the technology gets disrupted and so on. But this is what happened with the fixed line to a mobile, and you know where those companies are and you know where the mobile companies are today in terms of cash flows, user base, and the future, as we know, is going to go mobile again. Some of that, this guy is also responsible for it. He's gotten more. He's one of the co-founders of Intel, and he propounded a very interesting law called the Moore's Law, which, if you're not aware, he said in the 1970s that every year the number of transistors on the microprocessor will double. So, on the other hand, if something doubles and the supply of computing processing power increases, what happens to it economically? Its cost keeps going down. So every year you have a more powerful device available which costs you slightly lesser than the previous one which was made. I don't know, some people in this audience seem to be old enough to remember this type of a computer. I started off here. And you can see that number of transistors have exponentially increased as the devices have gotten smaller and smaller. Let me tell you the scale of the Moore's Law. This is the latest iPhone 6 at scale, and this is the latest 12-inch MacBook which Apple has launched. At a level of sophistication that the circuit has gone into, that the entire computing, the motherboard, the chip, the RAM, the hard drive is here, which is smaller than the iPhone. Wow. So when you talk about disruption, we need to qualify what disruption actually means as a definition. So when you innovate something, you go from something which is existing to something slightly better than that. But when you disrupt, you make that something completely obsolete and create something totally new. So long back, I read this book called The Innovator's Dilemma. It's written by a professor in Harvard called Clayton Christensen. And he talks about a very interesting concept of disruption. It's a model of disruption where he believes that a disruptor can come from the bottom of the product life cycle and disrupt the entire product chain. So what he meant by that is, if you take the same example of the computer, so in the 90s, if you use a phone for any computing requirement, at best you could use it as a calculator. But you never could do the kind of things we do today. You could never play a game. Or yeah, you could if you had Nokia 3310 and you had Snake. But still, beyond that, you couldn't do much with the phone apart from using it as a contact diary or to call people and send SMS. But at that time, you had computers which were fairly sophisticated. You had the iMac, you had the Windows 98 or whatever they were selling. So anyway, so you had those things which were doing the job in offices and they were installed everywhere. But you had mobile phones which are very clunky. So sustained incremental innovation in mobile technology and using the Moore's law, you could see what happened. So this blue line here at the top is the install base. This is in millions. The blue line is the install base of PCs, the desktop PCs, which also includes the laptops. The orange line is the smartphones and the green line is a tablet. So as the mobile device became more capable, as the mobile device kept on increasing its features slowly and steadily, as the app stores came, as people started making apps, the devices became much more useful. The adoption rate shot up. By the way, here was the launch of the iPhone 07.
What's the red line?
The red line is the smartphones, and the green line is the tablets, and the blue line. So you can see the PC market, it exists. It's not gone away completely, but I can do more things on my mobile phone today than I could do on my computer. Okay, a few months ago WhatsApp was not there on my PC, but now it's there. So yeah, now even my PC can do WhatsApp.
Quick question.
Yeah, sure.
On growth rate.
Yeah.
Now, if you separate in the PC, the laptop and the desktop, wouldn't you see that
The laptops will grow faster and the desktop should grow at a slower pace. I don't have a chart here, but I have seen that chart.
that's on
Yeah. I don't think the number is there, but it was close to less than 100 million, and September 13 it was around a billion. So in 7 years, a billion user base. Actually, if you extend the graph, I didn't have the latest graph, but it will be a much higher exponential curve for tablets as well. So what he was saying is a technology which was less sophisticated and technology which was not so useful for any other computing means, and only a niche group of people were using it. It came at the bottom of the computing market, and it slowly and steadily upgraded itself and disrupted the incumbent, which is the PC or the laptop which we are using. So this is disruption from the bottom. But this gentleman, he's Elon Musk by the way, he taught us a different model of disruption. He says disruption cannot be just from the bottom. I can always come from above. So in 2008, he introduced in his company Tesla Motors a model of a sports car. Probably one of the first electric sports vehicles out there. It's a roadster. It is priced at $100,000 per car and it had a very limited range, probably 50 kilometers to 80 kilometers range on single charge. There were no battery stations available to recharge it. You would take it to home. There's a special plug you insert in your adapter and start charging like a mobile device. This was $100,000 is probably at par at the highest level of, say, petrol cars from BMW or the Audis, the highest end of the cars. Jump to 2012, he decides to scrap it. He decides to scrap the sports car altogether and comes up with a luxury sedan. And look at the price point, $75K a piece. He dropped $25,000 from the price of that car, made the car much more efficient. The car had 4 times the range, and Tesla also gives, I don't know if you're aware, an infinite mile warranty. Because it's an electric motor, things don't break down as easily. I mean, how often has our ceiling fan in the home broken down? I mean, you rip it apart only when you get bored of seeing it every day. So it keeps working for decades. So electric motor is essentially the same thing. Now this guy came into the market challenging the top cars of that market, the BMWs and the Audis and the Mercs and the Rolls Royces. And he had no interest in going to the mass market when he came in. So now if you see what these auto companies are doing, they are launching their own electric cars. BMW is trying to come up with a hybrid and electric only. Mercedes is trying one. Every auto company, if you read the annual reports, you will see that this is what they want to do. This is the next big thing. But surprise, all these auto companies had electric cars much before Tesla Motors was born. So what happened? So, sometimes companies' managements, they decide that they want to go into a disruptive. Remember the guy from BSNL who said, okay, shelve it, let's figure it out later. Because my shareholders will never understand. I could never explain this to my board of directors. I could never give an excuse which is strong enough to disrupt my existing supply chain or my existing cars. Case in point, Adobe. Adobe, this is a 5-year sales and net profit graph of Adobe systems. Adobe, which makes Photoshop, CorelDRAW, all these creative softwares. These are numbers in millions. So you can see $3.8 billion of sales in 2010, going slightly closer to 4,200 million. So $4.2 billion in sales. It's a flat number. It's not a significant growth. But look at net profits. A precipitous drop in net profits. So Adobe, somewhere 3 years ago, changed their business model from selling only packaged software. I mean, you get in the box and you install it in the CD and put a serial number and it works. From that, they shifted to cloud also. So they added another distribution platform to their business model, saying that we're going to go all out on the cloud platform. So, and they didn't just go step by step. They put all their products on the cloud at one go. So you probably feel now that they are disrupting their own business model. What happened to their share price? Must have crashed. Look at net profits. Well, it turns out if you communicate with your investors and your analysts in a better way, you handhold them through the transition process, you tell them what to expect in the business going ahead and why they have to change now despite changing from 4 years from now. This is what you get, a 17% CAGR and a huge drop in net profit. The investors understood. But hey, I mean, it's not like everything works out the way we plan. So what are the investors really hoping for? They're hoping for that Adobe's adoption of exponential technologies along with a change in the business model will probably become a killer combination in their financial statements eventually. Well, some people can have the luxury of hoping, but at 130 price to earnings ratio, I won't have that luxury, but still. It's an interesting example that is not really the shareholders' fault every time that they will not understand the business model. So the auto companies could have done the same thing if you really wanted to promote the electric vehicles. Next, point number 4 is dematerializing. So we heard about disruption, but what happens to the old technology? Does it still linger around? I mean, yeah, sometimes it does. We still use PCs, we still use laptops, despite having more powerful mobile phones in our hands. But eventually, the old technologies disappear completely because they are no longer relevant in our work life, apart from, say, a niche use. This is a very nice video showing the work desk as it was in 1980. And the video shows, let's see, 81, 82, 83, 84, 86, 87, 89, 90, 91, keeps going. And goes on and on and on, replacing all the tiny trinkets on our desk with apps. Once more? I just love it. I'm sorry. So look at the way all these products start disappearing or start becoming relevant in our becoming relevant in our day-to-day life because you have that small app in your computer which does the same thing. You don't need a calculator. You can use an Excel sheet. You can use a calculator on screen. You no longer need a Rolodex on your desk to remember whom to call and the contact cards. You have a contacts app in your computers or your phones. Dictionaries online. Google is there. LinkedIn maintains your professional connections, store photos. So everything that you thought was important on your desk now becomes a minimal desk with just a computer or a smartphone. And yeah, you cannot replace the shades. So once something gets dematerialized, something that happens parallelly, which basically takes money out of the equation. So you remember, have you heard of torrents technology, peer-to-peer file sharing? So when you do that once, you will never want to buy content anywhere. The technology is so efficient, you would never want to buy a DVD. You'll only buy it out of guilt. That yeah, I want to buy it because I respect the creator's creative talent and I want to pay that royalty to him. But the technology is so efficient and all these billions of dollars of content circulating across the world with no oversight from any of the content creators. It's free, it's the right to copy rather than the copyright. Of course, it's illegal and they try to stop it, but well, people have moved way ahead of that. Look at WhatsApp or technologies which are similar to WhatsApp when they came, but I hardly text anyone an SMS. I'm always on WhatsApp whenever I want to text to someone. The only text I get is from some sad robot in my bank's server who sends me that, hey, you swiped your credit card here. Is that you? Yeah, fine. That's the only SMS I get. I mean, I have never used an SMS for a long time, but because these technologies are available, so something I would have paid, say, 50 paise for to send to somebody was demonetized by a data plan and a WhatsApp and a smartphone. How many Skype users here? So if you use Skype, you know that international calling will never be the same. You will never want to dial the number. You will feel it. It will hurt to dial that number on your phone. So that's what demonetization does. It removes money out of the equation. Look at Google. I mean, people In India, people like DTH operators, cable providers are crying, weeping blood every time. ARPU badao. ARPU is average revenue per user. How can we increase ARPU? That is the profitability metric that they want to look at. That will mean that people are using their product and paying for the content. Nobody wants to pay. Nobody wants to pay. And on the other hand, you have people loading content on YouTube by terabytes every day, ad-supported content. It's fine. People are watching that content on their iPads, on their smartphones. And I don't know, if you travel in local trains, you will find people sharing films amongst themselves.
Every second, third person.
And it's like when you enter the train, busy sharing, and everybody's chit-chatting till the file downloads, and after a while the entire compartment is silent. And you think people are sleeping? No, they are watching movies. The files have been transferred and people are watching films. If you have these kind of technologies available, who would actually want to go and buy that movie's DVD, convert, sorry, you had a question?
In this context,
Yeah.
how do you explain the rise of Netflix? People are paying for content, right? Netflix in the US.
Yeah, so there are models. So even on YouTube, there are paid videos available. If you want to, so yeah, again, that country has evolved in a model where people have been paying for content. The average cable bill comes from $60 per month. That's a crazy amount. We pay 1/10 of that. So I agree with you. Models exist and they will also have to face the challenge of disruption. So they have to keep innovating. So if you respect somebody's copyright and you download it and make it very seamless, you, like Dan Ariely says, you remove the pain of paying from the equation. You have a monthly utility bill coming to you of Netflix, I pay some monthly charge and you get all you can watch content on that. You wouldn't mind doing that. Recently I subscribed to Apple Music service. I mean, I'm not a music fan, but I listen to music sometimes, and Apple Music is for 90 rupees per month. It's hardly anything for listening to all the music in the world, all the time you want it. So yeah, you can pay. If you remove the pain of paying, probably people might want to pay. But if somebody sees the bill, oh, I hope it answers your question.
Kind of.
So you can add on that if you want to.
So I'm just thinking, even for the SMS, as you said, we don't pay for SMS, but in the US, most people don't use it.
Right.
Use only text because it's bundled with their data and price.
Right.
I'm kind of questioning your premise that if we demonetize, business models just go away.
So again, when I was in the US, I was constantly on WhatsApp anyway. I had a data plan with me, it was paid for. I could have used the SMS, which was free, but I didn't. I still chose to use WhatsApp because my focus was on that app. I knew my finger automatically went to WhatsApp. So I think it's also a part of habit that you start developing once you start using technology, and then when everybody's on that platform and you know that it is very convenient to. So in an SMS, if you want to create a group and send things to the people, it's very inconvenient because the user interface doesn't exist the way WhatsApp manages it. So again, it's design, pain of payment, all those things. So even if you're paying for it, you may not want to use it. So as a platform, you will see the volumes declining anyway. And then people, sorry, got a question?
Go ahead.
And people will, so in the boardroom, the decision will be made that the volumes are no longer there. Why are we funding this service? Yes, Veer.
Yeah, so you spoke about WhatsApp,
Huh?
and there's tons of users obviously saying value add, but like if one, they don't monetize it, but how will they ever monetize it? Like they used to pay a ton of money for WhatsApp, but how justify this?
Tough question to answer. Because these business models keep evolving. So apart from disrupting the technology itself, you can also disrupt the business models and come up with something new. So when I installed WhatsApp on my phone, I paid $1. And then they never asked me for any money. But some people have to pay $1 every year, which is again a very small amount. In our country, we don't have carrier billing, where if you purchase an app, you have to still use a credit card rather than it comes in your bill. In some countries, they have itemized bills where the app purchase comes in your bill. So if it is that convenient to pay for an app, people will download it and forget it. Or they'll let the billing happen once every year, whatever they are. So if you have 600 million users and you charge them $1 every year, that's the revenue potential for that year. What if you start showing banner ads? I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud. There can be different ways to monetize something or not to monetize something because you want people on your platform. So there's a list I think going around saying which are the top apps people use on their mobile. The top 3 apps are from Facebook. The Facebook app itself, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger. And then Instagram and other things, Twitter, they keep coming in the list. So I don't know exactly how they will monetize it, because they are also in the constant phase of evolution. But that's an interesting point. I mean, what is the point of paying such a huge valuation? Well, they're thinking from a different point of view than we are. So demonetizing. And the last but very interesting point is to democratize technology. So how many of you have seen these kind of posters or hoardings on the street when you're driving in Mumbai? It says shot on iPhone 6. These are photos that user-generated photos. The people have taken these photos. People like you and me who have iPhone 6s, they went out and took photos and sent it to the Apple gallery, and they were shortlisted. And Apple converted that into a very genius ad campaign. And I mean, 10 years ago, if you really wanted a photograph taken by you to be on a hoarding in Mumbai at a very plush neighborhood, you would have to be a bloody good photographer, a professional photographer with a long Canon-like lens, and you really need to be of that cadre to be on that poster somewhere. Even if it is a magazine ad that you shot or whatever, but you need to be a photographer, a professional one at that, to have this kind of exposure. But users can now expose themselves. Their creativity is being exposed to the world because they had this small device in their pocket. And that's what technology does. It gives the power to the user to do whatever with it. You do this or you play Candy Crush. Who cares? But you know what? These 6Ds are all fine. It's all theoretical maybe. It's interesting because most technologies have gone through the same process, and some became obsolete, some got disrupted, some came up. How will they actually play out? Right now we are, like every decade everybody is, we are right now at a confluence of all these technologies. There's a list of technologies I have mentioned here. It says genetics, artificial intelligence, electronic money, big data, robotics, sensors, 3D printers, electric vehicles, virtual reality, solar power, cloud computing, mobile internet, drones. So we are at the confluence of all these technologies right now, and who knows what type of combination will come up to create a service or a product which everybody would want to use and disrupt something that is already in existence. So let's go through this list one by one. It's highlighted mobile internet. So obviously we have used mobile internet, we use it every day, and we know how convenient it is. I mean, I wouldn't go back to any other technology, because I know 3G is available every time, Twitter channel, everything works because we're so used to it now. But imagine somebody using mobile internet in a village. What internet will he see? Will it be the English internet that we are so used to use, or will it be something else? For mobile internet to grow, there has to be a innovation in regional languages to come on the mobile internet. And when that happens, so right now if you have a mobile internet connection in a village, all the content you will consume is an audio-visual content in your local language, and which is what you want. Which you will download it and you watch the videos in audio or whatever. What if Siri starts speaking in Hindi? Siri, you know Siri, right? Siri is a technology in the iPhone, which is like an assistant. You can talk to her and she will give you answers and whatnot. What if people just leapfrog from typing in Hindi on a keyboard to talking in Hindi on the phone, and the phone understands it? I mean, we have Google now. We have used Siri. If you ask Siri to call somebody, it will call. Of course, if it understands your accent first. But all those things, the natural language technology can always improve. And mobile internet can be the next big thing, and which is, so we have all seen those no ullu banaving kind of ads and all. I mean, that is the reality of mobile internet. 3D printers. Now, this is one giant of a technology which has been there for the past 30 years. It has been under a deceptive stage for the past 30 years, incrementally, exponentially growing. Now it has come down to the size of a box, which you can install in your home like a HP or a Brother printer, and you hit print on the design on your computer and it prints something in 3D. People are printing iPhone cases. They go there, they design it, somebody hits print. They have a customized iPhone case just for you. Let's look at this. Oh my god, let's look at a small chart, very tiny microscopic chart. I'll read out to you. So these are the current users of 3D printers, the first column, and this is the technology, the industry which is using it. The first one says commercial aerospace and defense. The current applications are concept modeling and prototyping. So prototype modeling is very easy to understand. You take a modeling software like AutoCAD, you design a model for the component that you want to make, and prototyping means to realize the model into real life. So previously in the olden days of manufacturing, you would require somebody to create that thing, or if it's a clay model you can make it very easily, but if you want to make a real life prototype, you have to go to the factory, design that mold and cast it, then pour metal, stamp it, or do whatever, forge it, and then it comes out like a magical thing, which is, then you finish it and then it becomes usable. That's the process, right? Well, for prototyping now you just hit print. Put whatever elements you want. You can use a metal printer, you can use a plastic polymer printer, depending on what prototype you want to make, and hit print, and it prints. No matter what time it takes, but it prints right now. Again, this can only print smaller parts right now because the technology has not gone to that extent where it can print huge parts. But the largest printer I remember reading about has the capability of printing an entire dashboard of a car. So it's that big. Again, the possibilities are embedding electronics directly onto the parts, which is again an interesting possibility. Again, the possibilities can be endless. I don't want to read that list. Let's go to the next area, space. Again, similar, specialized parts which can be made in space. So instead of carrying the payload of spare parts with you in your spaceship, say you have an extra screwdriver, you have an extra screw, because some things can break down and there's no shop available upstairs. So might as well carry everything with you. You don't need to now. Take a printer with you, take the raw materials with you in a neatly packaged format, which will distribute the payload properly and print there. Again, automotive, the same principles of any manufacturing thing. Healthcare, printing prostheses and implants. So dental technology has taken 3D printing to the next level. So they can actually print a tooth which you can implant. Again, it won't be the same material that you want, but still, it is possible to print a tooth or even caps on the site. You don't need to wait for the guy to call you. Hey, I will call you tomorrow. आज जो बंदे को भेजा है, he will send a thing tomorrow and you can come. I'll call you. The last industry is consumer products. Again, the same story applies for 3D printing. But why do people love 3D printing so much? Why suddenly you're reading more about it? And if you look at this graph very carefully, and it's difficult to look at it carefully, but I'll just illustrate it for you. So on the y-axis you have cost per unit manufactured. On the x-axis you have units manufactured by volume. So there is this nice smooth curve growing, which is the conventional method of manufacturing, where you need to reach a certain volume of manufacturing in order to get to the break-even point and start making money out of that thing. This is what we know as economies of scale. But in 3D printing, you can see no matter how many parts you print, it's going to cost the same. It's local, there's no transportation required, the material is there with you, which you know what the cost of the material is. Put it in the printer, get it done. So no matter you print one item or you print multiple items, again this is debatable because not all materials cost the same and the material prices keep fluctuating. All those economic principles will come in. But again, if a business model is evolved in handling those things, then you can probably have an interesting revolution in 3D printers. And why not? So imagine if you are a guy who had an idea of manufacturing a product, and previously you would have to beg to some guy, hey, I want to make a prototype, can you help me? I said, yeah, it will cost you $10,000. I'll make a mold for you, and once that mold is, I will disrupt my assembly line for you. I made that mold, so I have to recover my lost revenue in that time, but I'll make it for you. Then you get that prototype in your hands, and then you realize that your design has actually evolved. You no longer read this. This is a useless item. Forget it. Okay, next. This is my new design. Can you print this? Yeah, sure. Why not? He will go in his factory. He will do whatever the factories do and create a prototype again. And again, as the product iterates, as the design evolves, these costs will start pinching you. because you are a startup. You have no capital to waste on just making something which you're going to use only for 5 seconds to see if it actually looks good or not. So now you have CAD-CAM technology which will create the model in a computer, and you can print it and see how it looks. If you want to throw it away, iterate, make a new design, and this process can be done recursively along with this graph. Each item will cost the same. I want to combine these three technologies: artificial intelligence, robotics, and sensors. And the reason I want to combine them is because, just see the photo and it will explain everything. So this is Google's self-driving car, and this is a photo of a lady who is differently able. She cannot see. She's standing next to the car, and you can imagine. I don't know if you've seen the videos of self-driving cars. It's terrific. It's unbelievable. You actually want to believe that there is some small guy sitting in the front driving the car from the inside. It's that funny. It's just unbelievable the kind of technology is available right now as we speak at the confluence of artificial intelligence, sensor technology, and robotics. So look at this photo. It just shows how a 3D car looks at the world. There are these concentric circles around the car, which is the sensors beaming rays and they're collecting back to get an idea of what is in between. These sensors will again tell the AI or the operating system in the car that in your path there is somebody standing, so don't drive around it or whatever. The AI will figure it out on the spot, and the route is mapped where it wants to go. So there's no need to touch a steering. There's no steering wheel basically, and the steering wheel is basically a robotic arm which connects to the axle directly and steers the car. These three technologies have come together to create a fantastic product which is not commercially available sadly, but it is available. The technology works so far. Look at big data. So big data is a very common term used for data analytics, the field of data analytics. It has a technical meaning, but in this context it is used to represent the data analytics field. So what does it mean in English? It means that I have an iPhone. I have say 25 apps on my phone. I use each app for whatever reason, and behind in the background there is a log being maintained of what apps I'm using, how often I'm using them, what services on the phone I'm using them. The data goes somewhere. The data goes to the app developer, the data goes to Apple, the data goes to somebody else. Data keeps coming from all devices. This is just me. Imagine everybody in this room has a phone in their pocket which is beaming some data back to whichever server. Whatever it is, it might be the location of a person, it might be what apps are installed in there, what ads to show you when you open the phone, or whatever. Data goes somewhere, it gets collected. What happens to it? So you need sophisticated algorithms to make sense of all that raw data. Basically you clean it, put it in the proper format, and then you see what the user did. How does this user behave? Anonymize the data, send it to whoever is wanting to use it, get paid for it. This is a business model of a lot of ad dependent companies, Facebook, Google, everyone. They do the same thing. So big data is a technology which allows you to make sense or get insights out of data which is generated by all the technologies that we are using around us right now. And the self-driving car, for instance, what does it do? It has a data analytics something engine involved inside which knows that if this shape comes, what does this pattern match to? Go back to your data that you have, figure out what pattern this is. Oh, it's a cyclist. I have to stop. All this happening wirelessly, connecting to a server somewhere, or probably having a local server. One example of data analytics I can see is traffic optimization. So imagine each car has sensors, and the cars talk to street lights wherever they pass the road, and the street lights talk to the traffic signals, and instead of having randomly illuminating signals or predetermined algorithm for the signals, you can have a traffic signal which responds to the flow of the traffic. It's not impossible, it's not science fiction, it already happens. If you look at a city like Barcelona, it's called the most connected city in the world, and it has probably the highest density of sensors per human being in that city, because they have adopted all these technologies to create a prototype for the world to see with the help of all these Ciscos of the world. And it's possible. A street lamp can give you information, or street lamp can talk to a traffic signal. virtual reality is a very interesting field, and it's already been commercially used in, if you know about how pilots are trained before they actually allow them to hold the stick of the plane. They are trained in a small cockpit with a virtual reality screen in front of them, and the software for each plane is different. So they're allowed to, like a game, they keep playing and they maneuver and they learn. Data is logged, and that's how the pilot gets his license and approvals and whatnot. In driving, some driving schools in the US, they have these, or anywhere in the world, they have these virtual reality driving rooms where you test your driving skills over there before you actually drive a car. Imagine a field like, say, designing or architecture, where you've designed a building and you have to walk through the building floor by floor, floor by floor. Ideally, you would want to build a model, and you will look at the blueprint and you will imagine how the model will look. Now, with virtual reality technology, you can create the model in front of you. You wear the goggles. Have you seen this? Have you seen the goggles? Virtual reality goggles? Yeah. So you wear those goggles and the model becomes 3D. It becomes virtual reality. It's not real. It's not in front of you, but you can navigate in that model. Imagine you're in a school and kids are wearing these goggles and you're teaching geometry. Show me a triangle. Okay, triangle. It's a 2D. What's a triangle in 3D? The teacher, yeah. So then you will imagine 3D triangle kaise hai. Then you use a blackboard. You draw a triangle, you draw an angle, you connect those lines. This is a triangle in 3D. It's a 2D image. You're tricking your brain to imagine it. Why? You wear the virtual goggle, show people the pyramid. This is a triangle. Let the kids roam around the pyramid. Let them see. I mean, you want to teach geography to kids? You take a map of a jungle and tell them this is a jungle. How do you go there? You don't have to go take a field trip nowadays. You just put the goggles on and you hover around. And why not? I mean, why not? Virtual reality can do that. So, like we said, electric vehicles have been around for a while, and the biggest problem with an electric vehicle is the range anxiety. And to understand range anxiety, imagine your iPhone is at 20% battery and the next charging point is available, say, 2 hours from now. Do you feel it? That's...
We just have something like it has a self-charging.
Yeah.
Battery.
So it has 2 engines in it. One is the electric engine and the petrol engine. So you switch from electric to petrol, and when you're on petrol or whatever gas, when it moves, it charges the battery at that time. So that's a hybrid car. But this is a fully electric car, and the only problem right now is you don't have charging points. So imagine a tree having a plug. Whatever. So solar panels can be used. But driving in the night, what will you do?
Tesla's the new car is 280 mile range. So
Yeah, of course.
280 miles.
Imagine we can do that in a Tesla, but again, if you go to 280 miles, do you have a charging point there?
The next step.
Exactly.
Each step.
So you take that technology and stick it up with technology for storing electricity. Now we have seen our mobile phones' batteries progressively become better and better. I mean, I had a mobile phone, a feature phone, which lasted for 3 days. It was like awesome. Now I have a mobile phone which lasts for 16 hours. And ideally you would think it is stupid. Why would you use a phone with 16-hour battery? Why not? 3 days was superb. But the screen, the features that I use, the mobile internet I connect to, all these consume power. And progressively phones are becoming better and better in combining new technologies to store power in it. So imagine a confluence of electricity storage and electric vehicles coming together. You can store power in a much more efficient way. So you can carry an extra battery in your car. Probably it will increase the weight of your car, but still you can carry it. Maybe in the future the batteries will become lighter. You never know. Maybe a business model evolution will happen where you can swap the battery at a petrol station, which Elon Musk has shown in the video. It takes less time to swap a battery from a Tesla than to fill a tank completely with petrol. So it's possible. Genetics is another such technology, 3D printers, which has been in the sidelines, growing exponentially. And we have learned 2 very important things in the past couple of decades. One is that we can sequence the entire genome of an animal or any living thing, and we can also modify the genetic code literally the precise level as to know that this is the problem, you remove this gene, you put some other gene. Just like Lego. So human beings are becoming like Lego building blocks, which people can manipulate now, or any living organism for that matter. So all these technologies are available. Genetics, imagine the impact of knowing your entire genetic history. You go to this genome clinic, you give a drop of blood, they will sequence your genome, and because of technologies, computing technologies available, the job which took months can be done in hours. And once you know everything about yourself, imagine the impact on the way you live, the medical profession. Doctors will probably be required only for palliative needs or to cure injuries, because you know exactly what is going to happen to you. Imagine what the insurance industry will do. The premiums might go up or down, you never know. Again, this happens so much in the sideline, it's so tricky to understand. Even for me, when I was reading, I left it halfway because it was too technical afterwards. But I got the gist that this is possible now. It's as easy as Photoshop. My favorite topic, drones. So, yeah, Rishit will know that. He asked me a question about drones in one of the presentations, and I foolishly said that, hey, this is never going to happen. But hey, it's happening. This has become this. This is a DHL drone, by the way, which is carrying something, whatever it is. So it's possible to have drones which are driven by human beings right now. Imagine the confluence of robotics, sensors, AI. It can drive itself in the future like a self-driving car with rules embedded in it. Next is solar power. It's a fascinating time to be in the solar power industry because of this. So in 1977, a photovoltaic cell per watt, that is a unit of power, costed $76. It's here. This is 2015. It costs 30 cents. I mean, I don't know what happened, but this is an exponential decline in the price. Look at what happens now. This yellow line is again the same thing, the solar photovoltaic cell prices, which is declining as we saw before. And the blue bars are the number of installations in solar PV. So this tiny thing over here, this is 2005. And this large bar over here is 2014, which shows 6 gigawatts of installed capacity. From less than, sorry? This is worldwide. So from less than 100 or what, 10 megawatts, it is now 6,000 megawatts. It's insane. And if something increases in supply to such an extent, the only thing is possible is to reduce the price of electricity.
The efficiency of the PV cell.
I don't have it here, but I've seen that, and it has also not increased exponentially, but it has moved up. So they're also thinking about different materials now, not just silicon photovoltaic cells, but transparent windows, which if you install in the offices, they can, not at the same efficiency, but they can do it. They have seen that technology work. But anyway, I mean, if something increases in supply to such an extent, it's inevitable that the cost will be competing with your existing power source. And if you connect this with, now the biggest problem here is the sun shines and you can capture all the energy you want. In the evening, you go back to your light switch. But if you improve the storage technology for power, you basically have solar power around the clock.
Isn't that already happening with concentrating solar power?
It does happen. So they use this, like a video I saw which showed technology called melting the molten salt and then boiling it, and it's crazy. It's very simple if you hear about it, but it's available. But again, if the technology is available anyway for electric vehicles to make electricity storage easily available for you, then why not use it for solar power as well? We are talking about confluence of technologies. All technologies which exponentially grow will eventually meet somewhere down the line and help each other and create different business models which never really existed in the past. Electronic money. Now, according to me, the biggest problem I have personally faced using electronic money is the authentication. every time you put 10 different passwords, there is 2-factor authentication, 3-factor authentication, you bank calls you, did you do this? I mean, it happens a lot. And after a while, I just want to pay. I don't want to keep authenticating myself so often. How do you remove that pain of using electric money? I mean, if you guys have not seen Nandan Nilekani's video on disruption in financial services, do watch it. He shows a very interesting example of using the database of Aadhaar card, which has our retinal scan, our thumbprints, and using just a normal smartphone, he scans your retina and the authentication is processed. You combine that with technology of an electronic wallet or a digital wallet that we know, and you make the authentication very easy. And it is possible, but again, a lot of regulatory involvement has to be there, and they have to understand what they're doing and make sure there's a long-term plan or whatnot. But it is fundamentally possible, maybe not implemented right now, but can be done. And if you can eliminate the pain of paying and make it as easy as giving cash to someone, why wouldn't you use it? Why would you want to carry your wallet with you? I mean, not the e-wallet, the real wallet. Cloud computing, you can also call it infinite computing. And I just want to show the scale of how cloud computing has grown. This chart shows the number of switches. So switches are used as networking devices which connect the data centers to each other. So switches, the number of shipments of switches, okay? This is 09 and this is 14. And this number is in millions of shipments. So you can see an exponential growth per year of the shipments of networking switches, networking equipment. So the yellow bar shows a 10 GB equivalent of a switch, which can switch 10 GB of data at one point in time, just for a theoretical understanding. The green says 40, which is a small part on the bar right now. So if you can switch something 4 times and in the same data center, which you only used to do 1x in the past, you have 4x growth just by installing that device. So cloud computing is going at this phenomenal speed, and if you ask any app developer that if he's using Amazon cloud or a Google cloud or whatever, he will tell you the cost of running users is so cheap and gets cheaper every year. And thanks to these guys who are exponentially increasing their number of data centers across the world. I mean, AWS by Amazon is coming in India very soon. Google Cloud has its operations here. IBM Software, all these big giants, they have huge balance sheets to just keep on automating the process of putting up new data centers everywhere and progressively reduce the cost of computing. So tomorrow if we want to do a number crunching which requires computing power, I don't want to invest in a server. I will hire one of these people, I'll put a code on that, it will run, it will give the answer to me on my browser, which is exactly what happens in many of our apps. So when you go to IRCTC, the number of ticket bookings that happen per minute might be in the millions, and somewhere it is hosted. You just see the browser window. You get your job done, but it's not on your computer. It doesn't process on your computer. It gets somewhere else. So cloud computing combined with many technologies here, like big data or AI, for that matter, or genetics. So the genome, the reason why the genome can be sequenced so fast is because you have so many servers across the world available so cheaply to you to compute the data that the process needs. But you know what is the most important exponential technology according to you? Not from that list, it's not there in that list. But what do you think is the most important exponential technology? Sorry? Okay.
Solar power and storage technology.
It's not there in that list which I just showed. So that list is over. So apart from that list, what do you think is the most important exponential technology?
Internet.
Already known.
Human adaptability.
What with the internet? Sorry, you were saying?
Human adaptability.
Okay. Anybody else?
Cloning.
Cloning. Any other guesses? It is a confluence, but for what end use? It's education. So using the confluence of cloud computing and all the technology that we just heard, we have these 4 platforms right now: Coursera, Udacity, edX, and Khan Academy. who can use this technology to infinitely scale the reach that they have. So if you have an internet connection, if you have an account in one of these sites which is free of cost, and if you have curiosity to learn something new, you can just keep learning. You don't have to go to university for doing that. Of course, the employability outcomes of learning from these courses are just emerging now. You're seeing people putting them on their resume that I am skilled at doing this, I have this Coursera certificate, I have finished this course, I scored so much points in that. You can put those things in the resume now, and probably it will become a more prevalent way of learning in the future. And look at these. So this chart is a little interesting. So here is venture capital, here is a non-profit world, and here are universities. All three are coming together to create and fund these platforms for more and more people who can access education now. You don't need to go to a Stanford to learn from a Stanford professor.
I think if you speak to these guys who do these classes and all, they say one important factor that they have is it's called handholding, which this does not give. So you can get material, but the handholding, the question answer, the throw, that's probably not. What do you have to say about that?
The platform has the capacity to create forums and discussion groups.
It's not the same level of handholding.
Of course, it is not. So we are probably programmed to use the technology in a different way. We prefer a guy standing in a room and 10 people sitting around us. Why can't you do it on Skype? You can, but you need a adaptation of your experience as well. So for instance, I write a lot. I take notes by hand, and I've been doing that since I was a kid, and I cannot drop that habit. No matter how many iPhones or computers I use, I just cannot. I use Evernote extensively, but if you see my Evernote notes, they are scanned copies of my handwritten notes. So yeah, I'm primitive in that way, but still, I prefer that. Maybe somebody who never holds a pen in his hand and gets an iPad as the first toy and writes A, B, C on the iPad, why would he go back to pen and paper? So there is some adaptability that you need to do. And I have interacted on forums when I took some courses and peer graded some assignments. Again, it's available. I agree with you that the experience is not as seamless as it would be in the real world, but that interface is available if you want to use it.
Scalable.
It is scalable infinitely. So, you had a question?
No, not a question. Related to what you were saying. The article saying that ENY in the UK dropping a college degree as a filtering requirement for their hires.
ENY. Wow. So ENY has dropped. Wow, this is super. I didn't know that. Excellent. So Udacity apparently has this concept called nano degree. So you pay 9,800 rupees per month and you start taking that course on programming. So you become a full stack programmer at the end of it, no matter how much time you take. So it's 900 per month, and after that you can approach companies like Google or all the tech companies who have funded that course, and if you finish the course you get half the money back. So who wouldn't do that? Who wouldn't want to learn and probably have a shot to working at Google? But you know what, who will pay for all this? All these technologies, and who will pay for it? Certainly I want to use it, but I want to pay for it. I'm an Indian, you know that, right? So one thing, the possibility of getting these technologies funded is companies have already invested or are on the track. They can keep doing the organic R&D and keep investing their cash flows in experimenting and creating better combinations of technologies, which you have seen in case of Google, because it's a very vivid example. I don't want to talk on Google yet. A lot of companies have done that, but Google has used three technologies and combined it into this project called the self-driving car. So it's an organic R&D, which we'll see flowing through the P&L. Other is venture funding. So in the .com era, a lot of these entrepreneurs came up, and as internet companies go, they made a lot of money cashing out of these businesses. So a lot of these entrepreneurs who have technology experience and who are geeks, they have now become VCs. So you combine those two experiences together, they can probably understand what is needed by the technology and probably fund the relevant technologies, and maybe some of them will work. The VC rule applies, you spray your gun everywhere and something sticks and grows up into Facebook. So venture funding is one option. There are some other unorthodox ways of funding. So this idea called crowdfunding, which you may have heard on a website called Kickstarter or something like that. So you go to complete strangers and you don't do a jhola and beg, but you actually do that in a virtual format. You put your idea up there, you give some incentives for them to participate in your idea, and they will fund in micro installments. So Rishit will give $10, I will give $20, Mayul sir will give $50, and it all combines to the goal of that project, that I want to raise $1 million. And so many people will combine their resources if they like the idea, and probably either get a part of the technology with them, or they will get a stake in that company. It's go crazy, whatever model you can create out of that. Everybody gets a share in that technology in some way. It's like community building. So these platforms are available. I mean, it's not like people are not willing to fund these technologies. People have money. I mean, today only somebody said that they received a Ganpati invitation which cost like $2,000. I mean, people have money. I mean, it's okay. There's another idea called incentive competitions. So how many of you heard of X Prize? So it's a competition which made one of the first rockets in space by a third party, rather than say NASA or a government funded aerospace division. So that contest came out. People who are interested in the technology, they submitted their ideas, and one of them won, and they got a prize in the end, which led them to develop technology further. That does not mean the others lost. That means that their model did not win. So they can combine learnings from that model and improve on their model. Probably in the next version of X Prize they can participate, and the iterative process is accelerated by the carrot of funding. There are sites like Kaggle. Have you heard of Kaggle? So Kaggle hosts competitions in data analysis. So a company who has, say, I have an app and I have this 10 terabytes of data from all my users, and I realize that I have to do something about this. I want to monetize my app. I want ads to be shown on my app, and for that I need to know who is using it, from what device, who is the user, what they are doing, and accordingly some ad platform will target ads. But I have no way to use that platform because the data is just a data dump. It's not clean, it's not formatted in the right way. So you go to a site like Kaggle, you announce a competition saying that, hey, I will give you $100 per hour after this if you solve this small problem, which is the smaller version of the bigger problem. So you just give that, people will submit their codes, you review them, somebody will win, you will get that guy on your team and he will work on that and clean it for you and make it usable. So these platforms are available, incentive competitions are available in order to in order to motivate people to participate in solving problems in small iterations. There's a coding competition called Code Chef, which again does the same thing. And who will build these companies? I mean, yeah, it's interesting to see all these things available, but who will build this? And there are old companies who will build it, or there are companies or these entrepreneurs who will have all these technologies available from day one. They have no previous inhibitions or any old mental models in their mind of using the old technology in any way. They will see AI, okay, how can I use AI? They will not say, okay, I have to understand what AI is. Their process, the learning curve of setting up these business models will be much faster, or sorry for the cliche term, exponentially faster. So yeah, I mean, if you realize Mark Zuckerberg is 31 years old. Just saying, okay? You can build the biggest social network in the world at that age also. Of course, it's not an easy way. So there are some roadblocks. There are 4 points here. One is legal roadblock. So legal means that there are patent infringements. People will go to courts, have long lengthy battles, and settle $1 million lawsuits, whatever. Have you seen Silicon Valley, the series? Anyone? HBO series? So in that, the entrepreneur who creates this app for data compression is sued by the company he used to work for before, saying that you used my company's resources for creating this, so this is mine. So this can happen, right? I mean, you're a developer at some big shot tech company, and you suddenly have this brain shot. Oh wow, I have to do this on my own. But you use the company's computer to write the first 5 lines of the code, and it's somebody else's property. That legal impediments keep coming. Doesn't matter. Regulators, of course, I mean, they will be behind the curve. You don't have a lawmaker studying drones and aerospace technology every day. He will take time to come to the fact that how can this be used in a way which does not disrupt existing things. You have financial impediments. cash is gone. You scaled up your business too fast, your cash is gone. What will you do? How will you keep raising money? How will you fund the business in the next round? So you have Series A, Series B, Series D, Series B, whatever, all the alphabets you can use. And again, there is a manpower crunch. So you may not have the relevant manpower every time to scale these businesses to the level you want to scale them. You may have the money, you may have the regulatory power, the consent, or you may have the the legal protective barriers around you, but you may not have the right kind of people to scale the business model up. Well, which every industry has. But do they always work? I mean, all these exponential technologies we hear about, so do they always work? Do they sometimes fail? And yes, they do. So there's a recent example of a company which was a crowdsourcing manufacturing company called Quirky. This example has been given in the book as the best way of manufacturing in the future, and the book came a little too early and the company is now in bankruptcy. So yeah, these models fail. I have also read articles that Airbnb has trouble paying the hosts on time. So the ideal way of paying a host who is hosting the guest is that after 24 hours after the guest has stayed in that home or a property, the Airbnb has to release the funds that the guest has paid. But then again, there are these tax problems that it is set up in Ireland, the money goes there, it converts to dollars, who will pay the tax, who will pay the service tax. These issues delay the payments sometimes and people are annoyed. And the basis on which the platform was created, the trust between the host and the platform, the guest and the platform, and guest and the host, one of the legs is not working, probably. And they will figure it out. It's not like they won't, but still, it's not a cakewalk every single time. All these technologies will have its issues. They'll hit some major roadblock somewhere. They'll have to navigate it. But one question that keeps coming back to me is that, is it really different this time? So I was too young when .com bubble happened, but reading about it was very fascinating. Of course it is, because I never put a single rupee on it and didn't lose any money on it. But if you look at the salient points of what we just heard, that it's a confluence of many technologies, which again was there at that time too, but this is different. Venture capital experience is significantly higher. Of course, there will be some people who will try to be over smart and invest in something just to, I am there kind of an investment. But there are some very wise venture capital players who will invest very limited amount of money and see how the model works, how the business evolves, then probably put some more money. So the experience of venture capital players in identifying and investing in these businesses has grown up considerably since that time. There are multiple ways to fund your business, like we heard. Then you can go faster in terms of prototype to time to market. You don't need to wait for the iteration to take months or years. You can just try something out, do a test. If it doesn't work on these users, okay. If it works on these users, implement this model everywhere. And you can do A/B testing to figure out how it works. And again, there are so many stories of successful businesses that system-wide, the ecosystem-wide, the motivation is available for people to keep pushing the border to some extent. But how does this affect us as human beings, as users of technology? So there's this nice essay written by an MIT faculty called Michael Sharge, and he says that the technologies become disruptive because they change who we are. They just don't modify our behavior, they literally change who we are. So what does Facebook do? It shows us that we have to be more open and we have to start sharing our personal life with everybody in the world, or at least our friend circle, which I never did in my life. I never shared a photo with anyone unless they came to my home and I showed the album to them, and then they liked physically. Twitter says, be bold, but in brief. LinkedIn says, be a trusting professional. Put your resume out there. Network freely with everyone. Google says, be infinitely curious. Keep searching. MOOCs, which is massively online courseware like Coursera, Udacity, edX, they say, be a student for life, literally. Amazon says, be an informed shopper and an information-rich resource for other shoppers. So every review you leave on the Amazon website helps somebody else purchase their product after you. And every product that I have bought, I have read hundreds of reviews before I actually bought it. So it has helped me, help them, help me. Apple says, don't be aesthetically challenged. Demand more from technology. Uber says, be that person who never wants to own a car. And the problem that I've come to now is that is the era of public equity investments coming to an end in some way. Because if you look at these businesses, they are getting funded at multiple levels only by venture capital and private equity guys. And by the time they come to the IPO stage, the exponential growth has already been taken care of. And you are left with what? Kela. I mean, I don't know. So, I'm pretty sure that an investor who invested in Google on the IPO date is infinitely poorer than the guy who was the early stage investor in Google before it got listed. But you know what? The technology and the confluence of technology is available for everyone. It's not necessary that only these small startup geeks have the monopoly over using these technologies. Any listed company who has a business model which crosses paths with these technologies can leverage their business model to grow to that next level. Netflix used to sell DVDs by post. Blockbuster used to have a physical storefront. Netflix realized at some point in time that DVD ja raha hai boss, let's do something about it. And they moved to the cloud. Now nobody asks for DVD by post. I mean, there is no DVD player also in many places. I don't own a DVD player, but I can have a Netflix account and stream stuff. Exponential technologies were available, internet became faster progressively, so the initial adopters had to wait for buffering to happen, and then the movie used to load after a while. Now you press play and it is a HD experience, continuously, seamless for the entire playing time of the movie. So existing business models who have the capability to understand that they have to adapt, like Adobe did, or some other companies will do. There's one company in India, I think they are doing something interesting, was Prime Focus, I don't know the promoter, but still, they are going into this ERP software on the cloud kind of a thing, and they are doing something interesting, they're trying to do something, and I don't know who will win, but it's not like your life is over as a public listed entity, and you have to just hand over the keys to these kids. But who will win? I mean, can we bet on anything? I'll just leave you with lines from a Bob Dylan song. It's called Times They Are A-Changing. And if it was there, it would have been awesome, but still, I'll read it out. So the line goes something like this. Keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. And there's no telling who that it is next. So we don't know who's going to win. But we know that technologies, the companies who use technologies which are available right now and who are at the crossroads of all these technologies and can implement them in a better way than somebody else, they will win. Thanks. Come on, this is really complicated. Yeah, ask.
So you spoke a lot about Google and obviously they were great search engine.
Sorry.
You spoke a lot about Google and obviously they were great search engine.
Yeah.
But do you see IBM's worth instead?
Can be. Can be. But it's a different technology. It's a data analytics platform. And this is a search engine. So there might be some competition at some point in time in terms of analyzing data and all. But apart from that, Watson is a platform you have to use for doing something on it. Google is a search engine which gives you ads which they make money on. I'm not able to connect your question.
No,
if you can.
I mean, Watson is like, it excels in natural language processing, right? So, when I'm doing research, I ask Google the question, but it can't understand the question.
Yes.
It's typing the words to what
Yes.
I find on the database. Watson understands the question. So, like, if I'm doing research and I want to know how many red Ferraris are there in the US, Google probably won't even answer. But Watson will be able to, like, sort through data which doesn't directly say that, but can assimilate the information and answer it.
So interesting question. So what if Watson meets Google? So what if Watson says that I will give you my natural language processing technology, Google says my database is available to you, go crazy. And you tell Watson how many red Ferraris are in the US It searches Google.
Databases belong to Google, right?
They have these page ranks and links everywhere, so they can search, right? So when you search Google by text, by typing text, or by speaking to it, you'll get some results. So you can optimize on the search based. So if you have read this book called In the Plex, there they mention the process of iterative development of how the search engine evolved into what it is, and it keeps on evolving. So they flag these messages which give irrelevant searches, and they try to find why the algorithm gave that result for this particular search term. Why was the algorithm confused? And they optimize the algorithm. And at some point, this will be automated. At some point, you will have Watson doing that for Google and Google doing that for Watson. So
I just want to Watson needs Google. Like, I don't think Watson needs Google. They won the game for Jeopardy, right? They didn't do that partnering to. They were able to simulate the data on their own.
yeah, but I agree with you. So they can be a threat.
Raunak, I think in the beginning you spoke about how from say one user it goes to 100 users. Similarly, if you're charging someone 100, possibly come to 1.
Yeah.
So net where are we going with this? Because the company is not really earning well. So how do you look at this as an investor? Because if I'm thinking 2002 or whatever, if I bought Airtel, I'm thinking every Indian own a mobile. But then from your 16 rupees that you mentioned, now it's 3. So how is it? I mean, make money in the internet, and then again it had trouble. Now there's data and all of that. But how do you think about this entire duality?
So one area is that what has disrupted your existing business. So if Airtel figures out what has disrupted their business, can they adapt to the new technologies? Again, it's a high capex business, so it's not a decision they will take lightly.
I'm saying about Airtel. I'm saying you as an investor.
I understand. So as an investor in Airtel, I will want to understand what the strategy of the company is, what technologies they are looking at, what will they invest in the future to claim the cash flows that they want to from the same group of users. So from voice, people move to data. So will Airtel move to data or not? Well, they will, or they will not, whatever. Now we know that they have. So the next step, I don't know what technology will be available, but will they move to the technology if it is the trend is clear? So like I said, the trend was always visible. People knew that adoption rates are going up slowly. It's not like it's completely invisible, but like the deception level, you don't see it because you don't want to accept it. In the book, they gave a very nice example of Kodak. So the fact is that Kodak invented the technology for digital cameras, and they discussed the technology in the board meeting. It was some 0.02 megapixel at that time, the 70s. And at that time, the Kodak reel, the photo reel that we used to put in the cameras and take photos on, that reel gave you high definition photos if you print them. So obviously, people questioned in the board meeting, how many users are using this technology? Yeah, very few. It's just in the prototype stage right now. So should we invest in it? Chhod yaar, shelve it. They improved their technology in the films to such an extent that they were the best film at one point in time. In 2012, I guess, they filed for bankruptcy. So I don't know, as a long-term investor, it scares me. It makes me nervous that technologies around them are growing and the company I own may not be able to adapt. So there are two options for me. One is to go into alternative mode of investing, that is, say, debt funding or whatever. Or you have a shorter investment horizon.
Will you make a case for that? In general as a basket, because terminal values, I mean, the way you think about them should be different, and
Yeah.
that valuation in general, I mean, you should not pay up as much.
But then again, you have to figure out what business model you are in. If you are selling soaps, if you are using an iPhone, will you stop using a soap? I mean, even if you have a soap app. Just kidding, okay. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so does this show off personal interest? And like countries like China, America are serving like just 24 hours a day on
The machine.
yeah, like you can actually see what they're doing with their everything. So in this effort to make everything secure, isn't the exact opposite happening? Because like everything is become like my phone can track everything, and I need to just take my phone and clear all data. So agreed where I think not being professional at an exponential rate, but at some point the growth is not going to be as much. There's going to be marginal growth. So there's going to reach a point where you can't do anything more. And everything else becomes obsolete. So what do you do then?
So if I understand your question correctly, you're saying that everything's connected, everything is online,
Yeah.
and if I understand correctly, how secured is it? or how secure you are?
Trying to make everything secure, but actually everything is becoming too complicated.
So
Everything is intertwined, like everything is intertwined.
it is. So Yash Zaveri here, he mentioned a very interesting book, Future Crimes, by Mark Gordon, right? Mark Goodman. So Mark Goodman was a cop, and he handled some cases of cybercrime, and he learned about how cyber criminals think and attack. And imagine the scale. You read the book, it scares you. And I have to go on airplane mode right now, but of course you cannot be paranoid every time. So he says in that book that as this technology of sensors keeps evolving, as more and more devices that you own become part of a grid, that situation happens where the machine takes over
And it's us thinking like a human, so it's really dangerous.
and can be used by anyone. So imagine a thief who wants to burglar my home. He connects to my smart home device and figures out when is the light going to be turned off. That means he's not at home. So he doesn't even have to be there. He's remotely sitting somewhere. Oh, light band ho gaya, let's go to Raunak's place. I mean,
What I understood from all the new technology, it becomes more socially effective to the user. We talk about solar, I think it becoming cheaper, it's advantage to the end user. But as an investor, if I'm as a businessman, does it think that the capitalism structure is, I mean, this technology is actually destructing this whole, what we are into the business about investing, where these things are actually turning this capitalism into, maybe as a user, I find everything very exciting. I find WhatsApp is free, everything makes sense, a lot of sense, but as an investor, as a businessman, are we seeing that this capitalism structure is somewhere getting disrupted by these new ways of, or, I mean, it's just a thought, I don't know how do you look at this?
so I haven't completely figured it out yet. But in my mind, I see that every disruption that happens, there is somebody else who emerges. So the incumbents have a choice that either they can be the somebody or they can allow somebody else to take over. I don't know if I'm articulating it correctly or not, but it's the process of innovation versus, like Peter Thiel says, 0 to 1. So like Adobe deciding to change. So I forgot to mention about Adobe's business model now. In 2012, their subscription revenues were 15% of the overall sales when they changed the model to cloud-based model. Today, as of December 2014's annual report, it's 50% of their revenues. So they successfully disrupted themselves, destroying their profitability for the short term, taking the hit, and now they're convinced that the model is becoming infinitely scalable. You don't need to print that box anymore and print a DVD anymore. So they were successful, and we will find such small examples in small pockets, and like the deceptive way of technology creeping up, we will not see them immediately until they become too big to notice. So we as investors have to do our groundwork to figure out what is happening in this industry. So for instance, if you are a casting company who has made all the money only making casts, what if somebody, your client in Europe, uses a 3D printer, but how fast can happen? Can 3D printers mass produce at the same cost?
The Tesla car, I just saw a video. I understood that Tesla had made up a car which just takes like say 18 parts to make a car. And most of the cars have more than 2000 parts. So I just wonder that most of the industry, I mean, if I talk about the auto ancillary, but then after 10, 15 years, there's more auto ancillary business because
I agree with you, yeah.
so the whole, what I believe is the whole capitalism, the way we've been involved in last 10, 25 years. So the whole thing is, I mean, are we going in those areas? I can't figure out.
We have a recency bias, right? I mean, we are seeing these technologies now. Maybe when 20 years back, somebody saw internet coming, would have thought in the same way. Is capitalism changing? Is everything changing? Is what is happening? And this one suddenly kahan se aaya? I mean, all these things weigh at different generations' minds, but we as investors have to do the groundwork. We have to know what is happening. I mean, this excuse for the presentation was just to get an idea of what these technologies are doing. And I can always read and keep it in my Evernote notebook, but the point of sharing is that questions keep coming and it helps me also learn, and everybody learns together. Confluence of technologies,
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.